Welcome to Between Two Chairs, Demystifying Commercial Real Estate, the podcast that brings you the latest insights and trends on the South Florida commercial real estate market, with your hosts, Fernando Arencibia Jr. and Jennifer Woolman. In each episode, we dive into the world of commercial real estate and break down complex concepts to make them accessible for everyone. Whether you're a real estate professional, a curious investor, or just interested in the South Florida market in general, Between Two Chairs is the podcast for you. So pull up a chair and join us.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Between Two Chairs. My name is Fernando Arencibia. With me, as always, is the host with the most, Jennifer Woolman. Jennifer, say hi.
Hi, everybody. I still hold my breath every time you get ready to introduce me. I never know what's coming.
Well, you don't know what's coming. I don't know what's coming. I have no idea what I'm going to say. That's what scares you. I love it. So, Jennifer, would you introduce our amazing guest for today's episode, please?
I'd be happy to. So in commercial real estate, we always say retail follows rooftops. And if you want to know where the next retail center is going or the next demand center is, you follow rooftops. So today we're breaking from our usual format and we're talking to the power couple who are actually behind building some of the, in my opinion, most beautiful rooftops in Miami. Joining us are Jose Almirall and Laura Salom, the husband and wife team behind Porta Design and Build. You guys started out flipping homes, right? About 10 years ago?
Yeah, 10 years ago.
10 years ago. And so today they're going to give us an insider blueprint on how they built a bulletproof company 10 years ago in what is probably one of the hardest real estate markets in the country. So welcome, Jose and Laura.
Thank you for having us. We're excited.
Good. So happy 10-year anniversary. I'm so excited that you guys just celebrated your 10-year anniversary. Can you believe it's been that long?
No, it went by really, well, actually, I would say, I shouldn't say it went by really fast because it didn't. But it's hard to believe that it's been 10 years already doing this. And we still love it.
And you guys still do a beautiful job. Every house is unique. I can't even call it a house because from the time you build it, it looks like somebody's home. It doesn't look just like a house waiting to become somebody's home. So tell us a little bit about yourselves, where you grew up, what you like to do as kids, and then what you did before you guys started Porta Negra.
Oh, you go first.
Right. So I was born and raised in Mallorca, Spain. I grew up there. It's a beautiful place to grow up. Nice, quiet life in a way. And I've always, as a kid, I was an only child, so I always had to entertain myself, basically, and always gravitated towards creative things. So I was always like drawing, building, even recording like shows on my own. I was pretending to be all the different characters in a variety show. And so, yeah, that's kind of... my dad's an artist. He's a photographer. So definitely we have a strong creative side in my family. So that was definitely a big influence. And then when I went to high school, I actually left Mallorca. I went to England to do high school. And then after that, Boston for college and studied architecture. I liked studying it, but I didn't see myself as an architect, funny enough. So then I followed into doing masters in market research and public relations. I worked in that for a little bit. Then I did my MBA, which is where we met, still in Boston. And I continued in marketing for a long time, market research specifically. Then eventually we moved to Miami. So I worked at Carnival and also at Burger King in the consumer insights department until the calling was there. The calling with the houses was there, very strong. And I had, I liked the whole thing of climbing the corporate ladder, all the different challenges there and everything. It was fun, but I felt like I needed to do something a bit more creative. And that's when, thanks to Jose, because I'm risk averse. So thanks to Jose, he pushed me to start it. So I did the first house 10 years ago. And then that was the beginning of something different and exciting.
I love that. So you're the creative and Jose's the risk taker.
Not quite.
More than me.
Okay.
So I wouldn't consider myself a risk taker. I would say that we take very educated business decisions that are backed by data. So of course, there is always a risk in anything you do in business, but nothing is on a whim. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am son of Cuban parents, but I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. So I was born and raised in San Juan. There's a group of Cubans that sometimes people forget in Miami that actually didn't migrate over to Miami. They went over there. So there's a large contingency in Puerto Rico. I was raised there all the way through high school, at which point I moved to Boston and I did my undergrad and master's in Boston. And just like Laura said, that's where we met. I did grow up as an only child, but I didn't record sessions or spend time doodling because I grew up in a condominium with 2 towers, and there were probably 20 kids my age. So I grew up surrounded by friends and relationships, and that was the beginning of I think part of my forming years. So I put a lot of stake and importance on relationships. And I'm proud to call my best friend today the same best friend I had when I was 5 years old. So I have preserved many of these friendships. I have another friend from when we were 10 years old that's actually coming next month to stay over. So all of these childhood relationships, the same thing for high school and then college and now today, I've cultivated for the long run. So I've always been a friends and relationships type of person. I studied finance, so I am more of the numbers nerd of the equation. And I did that for many, many years. Then when I did my master's, I did not do any numbers. I spent most of my time in marketing strategy. And then I also went to work for Burger King. Right before joining Porta, I spent 7 years at Burger King, and I was in operations and general management roles. And I climbed through the ladder, like Laura said, also. But it got to the point where I thought there would be more to life and then staying and supporting Whopper sales internationally. And Laura made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I
recruited him.
She recruited me. And the timing was perfect because our only daughter, Lila, was about to be born. And I believe I quit in March and she was born in July. So I was perfect timing to be available as a new father. And this opportunity professionally allowed us to be able to work together, spend time together. My last role at Burger King, I was traveling 3 weeks out of the month, visiting restaurants internationally, and I was just not at home a lot. And I thought it was a good transition. We have, not to get into maybe other questions, but we're very complementary professionally, as well as obviously personally. But her strengths are my weaknesses, and my strengths are not her weaknesses, but she's better served doing other things creatively than I ever could. So that's how we make it work.
I love that, and kudos to you. I adore my husband. We've been married almost 40 years, but I could never work with him. We would kill each other. So I understand. I know a few people who are married couples that work together, and when it works beautifully. And I've got to say, you guys really do complement each other extremely well.
Is that why every time I see Carlos, he asks me, how do you do it?
Yes.
How do you do it, Fernando? How do you do it?
Exactly. How do you put up with her?
I love it. I love the relationship and the data because that's a big part of our DNA as well. We love to be data driven in our decision making, and we're all about relationships. And so take us back to 10 years ago when you decided to take this jump. What were you envisioning? Because I'm sure that every time we speak to an entrepreneur, what you envision kind of just changes along the way, especially once you look back in a 10-year trajectory.
The walks.
The
walks.
walks.
Yeah.
I'll let you start with the walks, and maybe I'll throw in some pepper and salt along the way.
So it all started with us wanting to get healthy and do more exercise, get ready for also getting pregnant and all that. So we started doing these 2-mile walks, sometimes even longer, because if Jose could convince me, it would go longer. And so we would walk in South Miami where we used to live. And during those walks, we would talk about what, like our dreams and what we would like to be doing if we weren't doing, the corporate life. So I would always bring up this idea of wanting to flip homes and build homes and that sort of thing. So we started exploring that in our walks, and we started talking about, we were doing numbers in our head, like what would it take? How much would it cost? And we spent hours and hours as we would walk, talking about that. How would it work? What would the perfect setup be for something like that? And I needed a lot of reassurance before taking the leap of faith, because I'm the one that, started first. He stayed at Burger King. So I really needed to have it very clear, like what would it look like? What would it take? So we definitely did a lot of numbers and a lot of different scenarios. And
so in terms of the vision, I think at first I just wanted Laura to be happy and fulfilled professionally. And I noticed that she wasn't loving the time in corporate, because if you go up through the ranks, sometimes it becomes less about the job and more about the politics.
Yeah.
And that could be very draining if you're not enjoying that environment. So I noticed that she had that calling and that spark for houses and architecture and design. She would watch HGTV and she'd be like, "Oh, that's such a terrible choice," And I'm like, "Wow, you're really confident there," because and then she would explain to me what she sees that I don't see. It's all about proportions and this and that, and she has the eye for that. And I said, I think you should consider doing this. At first, she was probably dismissive, but all these power walks in the morning, little by little, we were building the building blocks of the business plan. At first, I think and I'm not going to speak for you, but I think the vision was more short-sighted than where we are now 10 years later. It was about flipping a home kind of the way Flip or Flop was doing it, buying a South Miami home. That's a big market of old 1950s homes that need refurbishing, rehabbing, doing a great job in selling them. So we started with that, and that more or less lasted, I would say, about the first 5 years. That was the business model, almost exclusively. The pandemic changed things. The pandemic, as you know, changed real estate forever in Miami. And as things got more expensive, we had to pivot. So the vision changed. We're no longer doing, $500,000 homes in South Miami. All of a sudden, there's nothing available. We had to look to markets like Pinecrest and buy $1 million home. So we started to pool resources. So the vision changed. And we saw ourselves doing, almost accidentally, as the market pushed us in that direction, doing bigger homes that require more investment, more fine eye for detail.
More complex too.
More complexities. Right, the easy homes, the homes that only need, cosmetic improvements were basically being grabbed by the average end user. So what's left are the difficult projects. And that actually came with a blessing, which is the more complex a project that you get, the more you improve your skill set. Mm-hmm. So the challenges that we were tackling were one step at a time, getting harder and harder, and the projects get more complex and bigger. The vision continued to evolve into even bigger houses, and eventually all the way to buying a lot or a lot with a very small house for tear down. And not even at that point had we even spoken about taking on clients as contractors. So you could see how the vision continues to pivot. And that took place over the last 3 years. Once we were full in building new construction and doing additions and bigger projects, we saw ourselves with fewer volume of homes that were owned by Porta investment fund. but more spare capacity for our teams. So the same teams that work in our homes are the teams that work for our clients. The same teams that help build this house are the teams that we use when we remodel the home. And the last 3 years, the vision again pivoted. And now we have the two companies today, which is the one we started, Porta Homes. And we also have Porta Design and Build, serving clients in mostly South Miami, the Gables, Pinecrest, city of Miami.
You mentioned 3 very difficult cities to get permitting in: Coral Gables, Pinecrest, and the city of Miami. I know, Jose, you and I have spoken, I don't know how many times about poor Laura being at a building place and wanting to pull out her hair because of the jump throughs and the hoops that these cities make you go through in order to get permits. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience with these cities, with getting permits? To one of your statements that you made, which was, the more complex, the better the skill set is. I'm wondering if having worked with so many different cities, if you've seen what some of these building departments do right, what they do wrong, and how they could improve that.
I think there's 2 sides to that coin, right? When you first start interacting with cities, you only know what you know. And a lot of the first experiences you have are mostly led by the architects. The architects are the ones that bring the knowledge. They're the ones that have the experience of responding to reviewer comments. And then the ones that are hand-holding you through the permit approval. So I would say that the first 4 or 5 years, we weren't really in the driver's seat. We were more trying to understand how it worked, why some cities took longer than others, etc. The second part of that, I guess, the last 5 years, the more plans you see, just like with anything, the more you do something, the better you understand it. We started to understand what it is that the cities really need to get plans approved. So I would say overall, our experience has been good. We can work with any city. We're not the type of of builder or contractor that says we're not going to work somewhere to avoid having to meet with a reviewer.
We do prefer some cities.
Laura will have some preferences, but
favorites.
But we can absolutely, and we have absolutely tackled everything. Now, if anybody's watching from the cities, we love you. We understand you have a duty to fulfill. There are definitely cities that are more difficult than others, and that take longer than others. We have cities, I'm not going to name names, but we have cities that you could provide all the information they request, and just because it's not on the page that they want it, they'll deny it. And they won't tell you that that's the reason. They like for you to go and get an explanation. So they make it unnecessarily tedious and long. Some cities love to work with you. I'll tell you that. South Miami is absolutely the best city to work in. They collaborate. Zoning will look at your plan and say, here's what I need in order for you to meet this ordinance or this code. Think of it doing it this way or that way. And it doesn't feel like you're trying to please someone without any information or guidance. It almost feels like, hey, this is why I cannot approve it this way. But if you find a way, they give you a little hint. If you can find a way and it matches with what you're trying to ultimately do, then we could probably move forward. And I love that approach because ultimately what we all want is to improve the homes. The city wants to improve the home. The value of the home goes up. They collect more taxes. We want to improve the home. We want to beautify the city. We want to move on to the next project. And some cities operate collaboratively, and some cities, they give you the homework, but they don't give you the answer or any sort of guidance. It would be, I think, positive evolution if all the cities opted for a more collaborative approach, where you're not feeling like you're guessing. Every review cycle takes 30 days by law. So one comment, just any comment that could, in corporate America, be solved in an afternoon. Oh, you need me to add the bushes around the AC condenser so that you can't see it. Fantastic. In an hour, I'll have it for you. Oh, no, you need to resubmit it. And now the cycle kicks in 21 days or 28 days for you to get a response. And that kind of inefficiency, because it is something that's at the city level, there's nothing we can do about that. It is what it is.
There's definitely room for improvement. And from what I've been reading and hearing in the news, it sounds like all the cities want to make it easier, especially with the scarcity in housing that we're experiencing. You think it would be better for everyone if we could build faster and be able to bring more houses to the market, right? But the reality too is that even though there's some improvements here and there, there's also more complexities added, because as there's flooding in the streets, they're changing basically the whole thing about the septic systems. All those things create more complexities. So now for example, we pretty much have to have a civil plan for any project that we do. That's something that we didn't used to have before. So now there's more departments also checking, and it's more expensive because you have to hire now a new engineer to draw plans, and just more things to be on top of and checking. So it's actually, instead of getting easier, it just feels like it's getting more complex. And the bigger the projects, obviously that complexity just starts to.
It's really interesting because we're entering a phase in which, because of affordability concerns and because of the lack of availability of housing, you have federal laws that are trickling down now, that are going to affect the planning and zoning departments at a local level. You have state laws. And what happens is now that also adds to the complexity, because these departments have to now implement these new guidelines. But what I would love to see, and I love, Jose, what you mentioned about the collaborative approach, because we've heard from other cities around the county where that is the case, where they bring you in and they have all the departments sitting down around a table, and then they go, okay, here is my concern, or I'm good, you're good with me. The other department says this needs to change, and then, but as you know very well, that triggers a change to the other department. But now they're all in one room, so they could figure it out. I would love to see kind of like a charrette, but not a design charrette, but more of a process where they bring people like you in, and developers, both large and small, that can sit around the table and be able to say, this is how I think we can make improvements together to this process. Because I think that would be very, very insightful, and you would get, I think the cities will get a lot out of that.
I think so too. I think that maybe there is some idea sharing sessions that could happen with the building departments.
You mentioned how expensive it is, right? Because you keep adding layers, and we're sitting here talking about costs. And so if everybody realized that just making the whole permitting process more efficient, it's not only going to cost less, it's going to bring more money into the cities faster. We talk about that on a commercial standpoint all the time. I mean, if you're adding 30 days every single time there's a change, you could potentially be adding 6 months to a deal or more. In commercial, we've seen it go like a year and a half before that business or home even comes onto the market to the tax rolls. So I think your point about creating efficiencies would really help. Tell us a little bit, because the last house that you did was spectacular. That was the one where you had your 10-year anniversary party. That's the one that I'm talking about. And that's definitely a huge shift. That's high net worth, ultra high net worth property. Tell us a little bit about that process, what it's like working at that level.
You mean building the house?
Building a house that's that big, go into the square footage, go into how fast it was on the market. I mean, you guys set a record for price per square foot in that neighborhood, if I'm not mistaken. And the time was super fast. I thought it was going to sit for a while just because of the size and everything else, but it sold immediately.
Yeah, we didn't even have to list it, which is amazing. We still can't believe that. But the permit process was actually very long. Speaking of permits, it took us, I think, about a year to get approval, mostly because of things like the septic the trees. There were several things that were just dragging it on and on and on to many rounds until we finally got approved permits and we were able to start. So the beginning was slow in that sense. And then for us, we always like to learn with every project that we do. So this house was very interesting for us because it was the first time that we were doing a 2-story home from scratch. We've worked on remodels for 2-story homes, but this was, new construction. Yeah. So we wanted to get that experience, right? We also added a home theater. So that was new experience for us too, creating that. An elevator. We had never done an elevator. So these are all little things that we love to learn about because it's exciting. It's something new. But then it just becomes, different tools that we have in our tool belt for the future that now we know, how to tackle them. So it was a fun project. It's one of the biggest houses that we've designed. It was 8,000 square feet of living, 10,000 in total. So it was fun to do. Imagine, because of my consumer insights background, I've always liked to think about what consumers want. Like I've always tried to have like a pulse on the trends of the needs and wants. So we incorporate that as well. Like what are the features that a home of this caliber should have, right? So making sure that those things are incorporated. So that was fun from the design side. And then the construction side, all these challenges were very...
I think every house that we build, it's an improvement upon the last one. So we have a continuous improvement mindset. We know that we can always do better. We're not afraid to sit around the table here with the teams because we use the same teams and there are no egos. We look at it with a perspective of what could we have done differently from a process standpoint and from a quality standpoint. Did we do something out of sequence that made it harder on someone else? Is there something that we could have done better so the finishes would be improved over the last one? And that happens naturally. That is just how we're built. Laura, there's kind of like a joke around the teams. When Laura goes and shows up with 5 rolls of blue tape, everybody squirms, but she goes crazy. And they say, no, make sure you steal it from her or like hide the rolls so that she cannot find them because it's more blue than it is white after she's done with the house. So she's definitely elevated the quality. And what I like and what I have seen in our teams that they feel that it's justified, that it is in fact good for us to elevate the quality. They are teams that also grow with us. We're not just growing without them, they're growing with us, both in terms of the amount of business that they get from us, but also their quality. They look back and say, wow, remember that house when we did this, that wasn't probably the best job. Look at this, look how much we've improved. They see that themselves, and they're also equally committed to that. And there's ways in which we've fostered those values and why we think very similarly or they think similarly to us. In terms of the purchase, so what was really interesting is that we had a buyer. We had a profile in mind when we were building the house. So Laura is in charge of the design and all the aesthetics and all the finishes. But when it comes to functionality and layout, that is a 50-50 collaboration. So the layouts of the homes, the dimensions, the spaces, the trade-offs. Do we do more living versus more terrace? How deep should the garage be? Things like that. We do it together. And we had just sold a new construction home. It was single story to this buyer who he has a very loud personality. He's always surrounded by people. That house is 8,000 square feet, 6,000 of living, and he made it feel small. He had 3 kids, but he had always an entourage. And I remember going to visit his house. He would call us over. If there was a warranty or just to say hello. And I'd say, wow, this man cannot fit these many cars. I can't believe that this house just really doesn't feel like it meets all his needs. So as we were building this home, we always refer back to him as an example, kind of almost a symbolic example of that profile of if we were to build a perfect home for that family, it would have needed to be bigger. Certainly 2 stories, so that his family has the second floor, and the first floor is more for his business dealings. And we should have a bigger driveway, and we should think about this, and we should think about that. And so slowly but surely, we're building this house, almost talking about this buyer being a reflection of our previous buyer. So lo and behold, maybe about 9 months before we finish construction, our former buyer approaches us to know what we're working on. And I said, I can't believe that what we've been talking about almost, just internally is manifesting into reality. So we started to talk with him. He said, well, we have a house that we're a little coy about it. We think would work for you. And we brought him to the office. We showed him the plans, and we walked him through the entire floor plan. And as we were walking and explaining the floor plan, we were highlighting all the things that the other house that he was living in didn't have. Mind you, that house is beautiful. It's great. It's a replica of our home, pretty much. But for his needs, it just felt small. So he's like, wow, that's fantastic. Boy, do I wish I had that in my house. I said, yeah, no, and then you have this and you have that. And for example, we had a room for the nanny in the 2-story home, or the living nanny that was separate from the rest of the family, that had a separate independent entrance. And we had made those decisions. We had the 2 laundries with the elevator right next to them, so that if you wanted to do the loads upstairs and downstairs, you have to walk around the house to do it. Like, there were all these functional decisions that were driving this. So he loved it. He's like, great, let's go and see it. And then Laura said, no, not so fast until it's not done and everything is painted. You're not going to see it, because you're not going to see it at its best. And there was still at least 6 months left to go. And 6 months later, we are 99.9% ready. We staged the home just for him. So we spent
we staged it sooner than we would have, just so we could show the house in its,
But even with the prospect of him saying, I'll take it, don't bother buying furniture, we still didn't want that. We wanted him to understand how the spaces felt with fully furnished. And we fully furnished every single room. It's not like one bedroom and imagine the rest, everything. And he was naming kids' names, such and such is going to sleep here, such and such is going to sleep over there. He was imagining his life over there. And that very next morning, we got an offer from him. He said, not only do I love your house, not only do I love what you guys do, I love working with you guys. And to us, that was the biggest compliment, because it validated all the effort in so many levels, whether it was the design, the quality of construction, or the personal touch and the service that we provided, or the 1-year warranty, that he felt very comfortable and loved the idea of transacting with us again. So we had one buyer buy 2 new constructions from us, and that's why I didn't make it to market. That was his only precondition, is I want to be the first one to see it, and we honor that.
I think it's amazing. So one, that 8,000 square feet can feel small. How big was this house?
The original one was 8,000 total, and this one is 10,000 total.
And second, kudos to you, because, in commercial, we always say you really have to understand your client, the needs, the pressure points. You guys really did a deep dive into him. You saw the client, you saw how this beautiful home that should have been enough wasn't, and you basically custom built him a home because you took the time to discover those insights. So that's amazing. I haven't seen that approach before from a residential builder. So that's awesome that you did that.
Well, I think it's just incredible that you were thinking of him all the time, even before he brought it up to you, and that you were thinking about functionality from putting yourself in his shoes, and that you end up building him at home without both of you knowing it. I think that's incredible. So Laura, settle a bet for us. We have a lot of clients that walk into a space and they instantly can envision the space being totally different. And then we have people that get stuck in the dynamics don't work. This, where am I going to put all that? So Is that something that you're born with? Have that ability to have that vision when you walk into a place that it's going to look totally different in your mind than it is in person on plan?
So I think there's definitely, it's innate in the sense that if you're born with it, you can do it from the beginning. But I think you could train your mind for it. So for example, Jose didn't have that, but after doing 30 homes, now we can go into a house that has a horrible layout and he can see it, right? Right?
Yes.
He's like,
Right, yeah.
Let me qualify that, right? Like, she is Michael Jordan. Maybe she's building me up into like a Scottie Pippen kind of thing. I'm never gonna be Laura. I still admire her. There's these moments where she sees something that it wouldn't have occurred to me. Not even, oh, now I understand. I wouldn't even have occurred to me. And just like I call her, you're a real CEO, because just when I think I have got every angle covered and I've thought of everything, you come in and in 5 minutes, you show me the 3 things that I didn't think of. And it happens with the numbers. Oh, did you think about this cost? When I'm showing her a business case behind an investment, so wow, only you can come up with the one thing. Look, I've spent hours in this, but that one blind spot she covers every single time. She has the ability to go inside. I think I've developed the ability to think about layouts. And when I meet with the prospective clients, I usually already take at least a stab at a layout, unless it's too difficult. And I say, Laura, I will need your help. She sees past the layout already into the design, heights, lights, tones, in a very complete way, in ways in which my brain can function that many layers. I have to paint a layer at a time. She's seeing multiple layers from the beginning.
Well, and what I love about Laura's designs is that a lot of times I'm frustrated with architects because they do something because it sounds good, but functionally it just doesn't work. All of your spaces are not only extremely beautiful, I want to say they're tasteful because they're very luxurious, but they're not over the top. They're calming. The feeling that you get, I mean, you just do a marvelous job, and there's no like wasted space. I hate walking into a space and going, why did they design that hallway? It's like total dead space. So kudos to you for that. Your architectural background definitely shows in that, and the fact that your ego doesn't take over, right? And say, oh, well, this would be something cool to put in there, even though it doesn't work.
And working with clients, it's different too, because you have to listen to their needs, right? And incorporate that. And ultimately, they have to make the decision of what they want to do. You can present the different ideas. When it's our homes, it's easier because, I get to do what I want. But we actually have, through the years, we have developed a book of standards. So we have basically already certain measures that we know are our standards, like especially when it comes to kitchen, bathrooms, that we know that if we don't follow like the minimum of those standards, it's not gonna be functional. It's gonna be uncomfortable. It's just gonna feel weird. So for me, even though I care about how it looks, the beauty of it, I also care about functionality a lot because, you have to have a comfortable home at the end of the day.
I was going to mention, because this is actually very interesting. We have worked with about 6 or 7 architects, especially as we were starting. And a lot of architects, and this is not an indictment on every architect, I'm just speaking in very general terms, but most architects know the code very well, and for some reason tend to design to certain minimums. So you'll see, toilets at 30-inch wide because that's a minimum and it's what they use. But men like wider toilets or wider space. So if we can afford to have a slightly wider toilet, we would. So we go for 34 or 36. There's all these minimums that they love to play with. And in the first few homes, when we were being explained and our hands were being held by the architect, a lot of these plans had some of these decisions that we didn't really fully understand because they're really more at the discretion of the consumer. Nothing says that you have to have 30-inch toilet space You can have 50-inch. So some of these decisions should be discussed. Fast forward to this year, we took a giant leap of faith and we hired our own in-house architect. So we truly became design and build the moment that we brought in a licensed architect to work with us. She's with us full time. She has her own office inside our home, which is really cool. She shares all of our values. She's great work ethic and understands what we're trying to do. And the architectural phase of all of our projects follows it almost feels like a very collaborative, what we wish we had when we were in their shoes, which is we actually sit down and we say, okay, let's talk about light switches. We're not racing and rushing to submit to the city. Like it feels like every architect is just like, hey, when are the plans ready? When do we submit? Those are really the two questions. Those are the last questions we ask. We say, okay, where would you like to have a hose bit? Let's go around your house. Where do you see yourself needing to plug in a hose? That happens to be an afterthought. Where do you want the motion lights? Keep in mind, if you put them in the corner right next to your bedroom, the light will go off if a raccoon walks, in the night. Do you want that beaming light inside your bedroom? Where do you want to turn on the switches? Do you want a 3-way light switch or just... So all these little important details, we walk them through sheet by sheet. We walk our clients and we educate them. They've never seen a mechanical sheet. We explain it to them. Here's where the AC, this is why you need a return. So they all come out understanding the plans and really signing off on the full set, not just a promise for a layout. And that has really changed how we see architecture. It's functionality driven. It's not a race. We need to get it right, because once you build a home, that's it. That's what you're stuck with.
It's a very thoughtful process, and having the
purposeful.
And having the architect in-house allows us to also work faster. So we can spend more time in the things that matter, but then between those rounds, we can already deliver the updated plans a lot faster too. So the conversation moves faster, and then obviously we get to applying for permits sooner as well.
I love it. I can't wait for you to take your talents to the commercial sector, because I'm sure that's right around the corner. I wanted to ask you, just because of the way you two are, you're so thoughtful in your approach, and you really, these walks, you started to envision how you could take something that you are passionate about, that you're talented about, and build a business out of it. For those that are listening to us that are dreaming of starting their own business, or they're in the process of doing so, are there a few lessons that you wish you would have known, back 10 years when you started, things that maybe were limiting beliefs, or, just things that you wish you would have known, back 10 years ago when you started this venture?
That's a wonderful question. Mm-hmm. I'll let you start.
Oh, really?
He wants to know the answer too.
Well, I think the most important thing is, whatever you decide to do, what your idea is, you have to be very passionate about, and it's gonna have to be something that you see yourself doing for a long time. In the hard times, because in the easy times everyone can do it, but in the hard times too, that you still have to believe in it, and you have to believe in yourself, that you're going to be able to get through it, and that you believe in yourself enough to really invest that time and make that type of take that risk, right? But if you love what you do, it's easier. Now, I'm not going to say I love what I do, I'm not working, it doesn't feel like I'm working, like people say. I am working every day, but I am enjoying it, and there's harder times, there's easier times, but there's, it's the reality of it. But I think you have to really love it. And also you have to be very open and flexible to adapt to change. Because like Jose said, our business has evolved, right? It has taken us to places that we hadn't considered before when we started. So you have to always be open, looking for opportunities, and adapt, because things like what happened with COVID, it required being able to adapt. That's why, unfortunately, a lot of businesses didn't make it. And I think that's one thing that comes to mind first. Did you have time to think?
No, I would say I don't know if there is something that I wish I knew before. I feel very proud of our evolution, and I think we actually approach this with a very humble mindset of we don't know anything. So the first home that we did, the first remodel that we did, it was very basic. It was a kitchen, laminate flooring, paint job. There were probably 1970s windows that we spray painted the frame. We didn't even understand the whole world of impact. And the roof didn't need to be changed, and neither did the AC. So we first started on the most basic of building blocks. And we always had that attitude. You have to learn to crawl before you walk and to walk before you run. Anybody coming into this needs to respect that the information, the sea of information in construction is vast. The number of things you have to learn, it's almost too much in one lifetime. Every project, every day I learn something new. Even after 10 years, there isn't a single project I walk into that I know exactly how it's going to go. And clients have that expectation. Say, well, I thought you knew that we had to move the cable, the AT&T fiber line before you had to do the additions. Of, well, I was more worried about your foundation and other bigger things. But there are things that I'm like, okay, note to self, look for the AT&T wire next time I walk into a client property. That's just a silly example, but going little by little. Also, always start smaller. I would say if I were to tell myself or somebody wanting to start, always start small and grow. Don't try to do something very expensive or very hard, because when you miss, there are risks. You miss the bigger the project, the bigger the miss, or the bigger the reward. But you need to learn to first master the basics before you move onto bigger and more complex things. Being an investor is an entirely different role than being a contractor. Even though both hats were doing home improvement or home building, it is not the same skill set. It is not the same role for me to build something for Laura as a client than to build something for so-and-so as a client. Those are very different skills, have almost nothing to do with each other. Her experience as a designer is completely wildly different. In our homes, she actually gets to experience her design to her heart's content, no compromises, no need to convince. It's just her and it's a conversation between herself, and what she wants is what we get.
There's always a budget.
There's always a budget, but with clients, you have to walk them through. They don't have her mind, so you have to have renderings, you have to have sessions, and most importantly, you have to have patience. This is a business of patience everywhere. Patience with a subcontractor that didn't do a good job, patience with a difficult client, patience with a difficult reviewer, patience with many, many things. Be comfortable when you lose money, because you not everything is going to be roses, right? And that's I think one of those reflections that I wouldn't change anything about the way we did things. I think we approached everything very responsibly, and in the natural progression of things. You can't force things. You have to let things come to you naturally.
Yeah, you guys grew very organically. Throughout our conversation, a couple of words you've mentioned several times. One is functional and one is collaborative. So I wanted to read a quote from your website. Quote, creating spaces that feel personal and beautifully functional throughout thoughtful design standards, collaborative processes, and strong communication. Porta Negra continues to redefine what it means to build with integrity, purpose, and style. I think that sums you guys up so beautifully. And in commercial, we deal with a lot less of the emotional. It's a lot more the cold contracts, the numbers, etc. So you guys have obviously started working, your progression has led you to work with high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals. How has helping them build their dream homes, whether it's designed by you guys because you're figuring out what their needs are, How does your collaborative process help shield them from the chaos that you guys experience as the developers and with the permitting and everything else?
I think that's definitely something they appreciate about working with us, because I think the most important thing is building trust, first of all. That's, I think, what our clients appreciate about us. Trust that we're doing what's in their best interest, that we're recommending the best solutions, and that we're doing our best in whatever we do. No matter we encounter issues, we're still trying our best. So I think being able to have established that trust from the beginning is very important in that relationship, because anything you do when it comes to a collaboration, then you're both sitting on the same side of the table. And just really understanding and listening to their needs and their wants, and being able to offer that to them, as opposed to just being like, oh, no, here you should put this, you should put that. Like some people have a very strong ideas of what they think a client should do. But I think it's important to have listened and be able to incorporate that. At least from my side of things, I think that's important, to spend time with them, really spend time explaining the plans, explaining why things work, why things don't work, and helping them really through making decisions, right? So they understand the whys, the advantages, disadvantages of the different options that we might be presenting, and always kind of being able to put ourselves in their shoes. We've been in that situation, so it's helpful because we know what they're going through. Like the psychology of a remodel is, it's a roller coaster of emotions. So understanding, basically we've seen already patterns throughout a project. So being able to be there for them through those moments, I think with a lot of honesty, it's also part of why this collaborative aspect of the relationship works very well.
I think on the execution side, we spoil our clients with communication. We over communicate so that they know that we are working on their projects all the time, that we don't just disappear and move on to another project. So at a very minimum, and we've implemented new processes and new methods of doing this. Now, when the plans get approved, so she kind of described a little bit more how do you collaborate with them in design, which is a little bit more ambiguous and amorphous, and how you get to that. When it's about execution, it's all about explaining, communicating, and delivering. And if you don't deliver, being upfront and honest and say, hey, so-and-so was sick, or we thought this would take 3 days, it took 5 days. But we showed up, we misjudged the complexity. The first thing we do after plans get approved is now we have a kickoff meeting. So we do a kickoff presentation. We have 3 project managers. So whoever is managing that project, helping me manage that project, comes with me to the meeting. And we talked about things that might feel like common sense, but they've never been through that. So I don't take it for granted that some of this information might be new, or maybe just something that was not at the forefront of their mind. Because, wife could be thinking about the bathroom design, the husband could be thinking about the outdoor kitchen with the grill, and neither is thinking that for the next 8 months, there's going to be strangers walking through their backyard with a porta potty on the side of the house and a dumpster parked on their driveway. So here I come and say, hey, before the function, I say, let's get excited. Permits have been approved. We made it, and they're all excited. Yeah, when can we start? And I was like, well, before we start, let me just tell you what starting really feels like. So we walk them through this kickoff, and it's sort of a way to regulate the expectation and the emotions. I say, hey, there's going to be noise, there's going to be dust, all of that. But it's not all doom and gloom. There's all the nice things that we also talk about. And we show them pictures of the shell, say there's all these inspections, and we educate them. Inspections are to make sure that we're putting what's on the structural plan so that your house is built the way the engineer intended it to be built. Oh, that's great. And as soon as we pass an inspection, you'll be the first one to find out. And then we also have every single week, we do a weekly update. That is a requirement that I have for my project managers. It's a non-negotiable. And we have a group text or a text group where you have Laura, myself. So you have the owners of the company, you have the project manager, and then you also have the architect. So you have 4 people that you can text to for answers. And we all know depending on what the question is, who needs to step in. And most often than not, we provide an answer within the same day. We don't ignore a text. We try to calm the anxieties by providing an answer. Again, we spoil them, and we try to do that. So every week, a client knows what is going to be done on their home, what inspections are supposed to take place. And when we pass those inspections, they get notifications and we all celebrate together. So our chats are all emojis and, laughs and smiles and
thumbs up
and fingers crossed and things like that. And when something doesn't go well, we are very upfront and honest about it. We're not perfect. That is a slight. We're not perfect. I know you're contracted Porta because you see the end result. You see the outcome of many, many months of work and effort and rework. I said, when you're living in the house, which we have quite a few clients that live in the house while we're doing an addition, that's a whole nother podcast.
You basically have a front seat to the sausage being made.
Right.
I tell you got front row seats. You're gonna see the problem before I see it.
Yeah.
Don't call me and say, "Hey, I can't believe they forgot this piece of rebar." I said, "Well, I just haven't got into your house. You live in the house. You're gonna beat me every time. You wake up, you're at the job site." But that is why we put this together, because we wanted them to feel that we have good control over what's going to happen. And even when it feels chaotic because they have never seen it, it isn't. It is a plan. It is deliberate. It is normal. We try to set the right expectation with them. So most of our clients feel very well communicated throughout the whole process. And we tell them, you don't have to talk to any of our subs. If you have any questions or worries, the people to come to is either myself, Laura, or your project manager. We're the ones here to help you. You don't have to deal with, whatever they're doing. If you're feeling concerns about X or Y or something that doesn't feel like it's coming out right, you can tell us. We're here to fix it and make things right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I love the communication and execution theme throughout our conversation today. And congratulations on building a business and on your partnership. You've proven that for a business to survive for a whole decade, that it takes a shared vision and a relentless focus on execution. I think you guys embody that. I love your projects. I love seeing you grow from the beginning to where you are now. And I thank you so much for sharing all of your insights with our listeners. Say bye, Fernando.
No, thank you guys. We're not doing that.
No,
thank you guys.
No,
thank you guys so much. I think this is an episode that is chock full of lessons. One of the last things that you mentioned there is it's all about value and really the culture that you build in your company and the values that you uphold. You can only say that you value something when you do it consistently and when it really is, a priority. And it looks like you guys certainly have the right values in mind when it comes to serving the public. So it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation. Yes.
It is our pleasure and very lovely to have you both here in this episode of Between Two Chairs. So for Jennifer and I, we bid you adieu. Say goodbye, Jennifer.
Goodbye, Fernando.